The Empire's broadcast began with a triumphant fanfare of horns, synthesizers, and alien percussion that sounded suspiciously like bongos being strangled. Citizens of the greater Galactic Empire, boomed a voice equal parts oily and smug. Rejoice! Operation Sterile Blade was a resounding success. The Earthling Medical Corps, their laughable attempt at humanitarian outreach, has been completely neutralized. On screen, burning wreckage drifted through the black of space. Hospital ships, clean white hulls, unmistakable red crosses, broken in half, bodies tumbling like discarded toys. The voice continued with theatrical glee. Their war hospitals were destroyed. Their nurses vaporized. Even their adorable rescue bots have been disassembled. Let it be known, compassion has no place in war. The alien anchors, one with a bulbous head like a mauve turnip, the other with eyes like teacups, snickered as the footage looped again and again. One leaned into the camera. Perhaps now Earthlings will understand. Mercy is for the victorious. Back on Earth, the silence in the unified Earth Command War Chamber was thick and brittle. World leaders, generals, and analysts stared at the massive holoscreen. No one moved. No one breathed. Until President Nathaniel Shaw, a former Navy SEAL with more scars than medals, slowly exhaled. They blew up medics, he said quietly. Red crosses. Kids. Civilian nurses. An aide nodded numbly. Yes, sir. 3 ships. No survivors. It was a massacre. Shaw turned toward his Joint Chiefs. When we were asked to provide relief, we sent doctors, not soldiers. When we were asked to negotiate peace, we sent translators, not spies. When they asked for mercy, we gave it. The room didn't respond. They didn't need to. He looked down at the matte black panel embedded in the table before him. A small glass screen covered in dust read, Black Site Zulu locked. Shaw placed his palm on the scanner. Sir, a general barked, stepping forward. That protocol is sealed for a reason. I know exactly what I'm doing, Shaw growled. But those aren't soldiers, they're monsters. They don't serve Earth, they don't follow orders, they barely. They were put away for being too effective, Shaw interrupted. And now we need effective. A hiss filled the chamber as ancient locks released. Half the room flinched. Deep beneath Antarctica, a dormant facility came to life. Floodlights buzzed to full brightness, casting long shadows across frost-covered steel. Mechanical arms stirred. Cryo vaults groaned. Electric sirens blinked red and gold. A recording crackled through the intercom. Project Wraiths. Containment disengaged. Inside the first chamber, a shape shifted in the frost. A man tall and broad, covered in ice crystals, clenched a fist and shattered his cryo shell like glass. His beard was thick, streaked with gray and gunmetal black. His eyes opened slowly, like someone who'd never really needed rest in the first place. Mad Max Reynolds blinked once. Twice. Then he grinned. The medical staff wore hazard suits. 3 of them. None dared remove the reinforced restraints as Max Reynolds sat upright on the edge of the cryo bed. His heartbeat was calm. Too calm. In fact, the biometric scanner gave up and started blinking error. You'll need this, sir, one medic offered, handing him a battered duffel bag. Max opened it. Inside, a busted Walkman, a lighter, a boot knife, and a photo of a pug in a tank top. He took out the cassette player, pressed rewind, then play. Bon Jovi's Wanted Dead or Alive filled the room. Damn right, Max muttered, standing. Sir, you've been frozen for 15 years. And somehow you still ain't fixed the coffee in this place, he replied. The medic backed up. Do you understand your mission parameters? Max looked up, eyes alight. They blew up medics. That means they picked a fight with the only people on Earth we all protect. Doesn't matter what war. Doesn't matter the side. Doctors and nurses are sacred. His tone shifted from lazy to lethal. Now, open the next chamber. Dr. Lana Krieg awoke with a long, low yawn, then reached for the scalpel on the tray beside her cryopod before she was even fully conscious. Reflex, she explained, slicing through the air. Where am I? How long? 15 years, Dr. Krieg, replied a stiff young officer. Earth's been hesitant to unseal your services. Let me guess. Someone did something stupid. The Galactic Empire attacked a civilian medical relief fleet. Krieg's expression shifted. The playful malice disappeared, replaced by a hard, cold stare. Medics. Yes. Children. Yes, ma'am. She rolled her shoulders. Her spine cracked like a thunderclap. Then I want my satchel back. The black one. With the saws. Ma'am, those are technically classified as war crimes. Krieg grinned. Darling, that was last decade's war. She stepped out of her pod, already scribbling a list of tools. And get me a fresh cadaver. Preferably Empire. I need to warm up. The final pod took longer to open. It wasn't locked by command codes. It was sealed out of fear. A voice crackled from the terminal. Warning. Subject Vasquez is considered unstable even by Wraith standards. Do not engage. Do not provoke. Do not say the word chainsaw within 5 feet. Naturally, the intern watching the screen whispered, chainsaw. The pod exploded open. Sergeant Valeria Vasquez stepped out, fully geared. No shirt. Just a bandolier, combat pants, a smirk, and 2 enormous motorized chain blades strapped to her back. Her dog tags clinked as she moved, which was weird, because one was engraved with the Die Hard logo, and the other said, property of nobody. She looked around. Who woke Mama up? The intern stammered something about a war. War, she said, cracking her neck. Sweet. I've been bored for years. She grabbed the chainsaws. The intern panicked. They said not to give you those. Too late. She revved one to life and let out a whooping laugh. Y'all brought me back and didn't stock up on one-liners? She shook her head. Unbelievable. The Wraith team assembled on the deck of Earth's stealth dreadnought, the USS Widowmaker. A hulking, obsidian ship equipped with stealth tech so advanced it had accidentally cloaked a moon once. Max paced the briefing room, chewing roasted coffee beans straight from a pouch. Krieg cleaned her scalpels with surgical precision, eyeing every officer like they were specimens. Vasquez sharpened her blades and mouthed Bruce Willis quotes under her breath. A nervous general cleared his throat. The target is a Galactic Empire logistics station orbiting the Zycon cluster. It's minimally defended, but if they get wind you're coming. They won't, Max muttered. You brought back ghosts. Let's haunt. Krieg raised a hand. Can I keep any specimens? No, the general said automatically. Vasquez raised a finger. Can I blow a hole in the station shaped like the United States? The general winced. No. Max raised both hands. Can we do our jobs our way? The general hesitated, then nodded. Fine. But do it fast. The Empire's already spinning propaganda. We need a response. Max smiled, slow and shark-like. Oh, they're gonna get one. In the void of space, the Empire logistics station rotated calmly, unaware. Inside, an officer adjusted a spreadsheet. We're due for another shipment of Earth medkits. Hilarious little boxes. The gauze is wrapped in, what do they call it, foil? His subordinate snorted, probably to stop it from bleeding patriotism. Outside, the USS Widowmaker decloaked and launched L, a makeshift EMP grenade made from a coffee pot, 3 microwave parts, and something Max called MacGyver juice, shorted the station systems in seconds. Krieg boarded with a surgical team of drones, each one named after famous philosophers. They carried bone saws and body bags. Vasquez entered through the trash chute. Why? Because it's unexpected, she yelled, bursting through a hatch and scaring an officer, so bad he vaporized himself by accident. Max walked straight through the front entrance, carrying a 6-barreled weapon made from plumbing parts. He played Bad to the Bone from his cassette player as he fired. When the dust settled, 25 Empire officers were tied up, trembling, their uniforms soaked in glitter. Every screen on the station now looped footage of the destroyed hospital ships, annotated with Earth's caption. You hurt our healers. Now you bleed. Krieg walked up to the Empire quartermaster and held out a scalpel. I'm here for answers, she said cheerfully. And possibly your kidneys. The alien fainted. Max lit a cigar. That's one station down. Vasquez slung a chainsaw over her shoulder. Let's go carve some respect into the next one. The three walked back toward their ship, leaving the station in chaos. Behind them, the Empire broadcast was interrupted again, this time not by human diplomats or official rebuttals. Just a grainy video. Max Reynolds, holding a coffee cup made from an Empire helmet. "You messed with the medics," he said calmly. "We're what happens next." He smiled, then held up a familiar cassette. Side B's even worse. Then the screen cut to static. The stealth dreadnought USS Widowmaker hung in low orbit over the Zyklon cluster like a harbinger of unspoken consequences. Inside its cavernous launch bay, the recently thawed monsters of Earth, war criminals, legends, living psychological profiles, stood around a glowing mission table, surrounded by technicians who looked one spilled coffee away from fleeing the room. Max Reynolds, still chewing dry coffee beans like they were breath mints, tilted his head at the mission map, unimpressed. Supply hubs? Outposts? Weak sauce. These aren't even military targets. They're the next links in the logistics chain, a commander explained, trying to keep his voice steady. If we sever them, we stall the Empire's campaign in this quadrant by 6 weeks. Max squinted. "I want 10. We don't have 10. Krieg leaned forward. Her fingers were stained with something that probably wasn't paint. "If you let me take prisoners for experimental pressure extraction, we could stretch the delay to 8. Maybe 9. "You mean torture," the commander clarified. "No, I mean unconventional diagnostics. If I were doing torture, I'd charge extra." Vasquez snorted from where she was sharpening her chainsaws, sparks flying off her lap like demented fireworks. "Can't believe you nerds needed a war crime to do basic strategy. This is preschool-level chaos. Want me to put crayons on the wall and teach you?" The commander wisely moved on. "Primary target is Imperial Relay Station hacks, 77. Remote. Unmanned except for a skeleton crew. If we take it, we control their tactical broadcasts in this system. Jamming it causes minor inconvenience. Hijacking it? Galactic embarrassment." Max chewed thoughtfully. "Embarrassment's good. Empire hates embarrassment more than death." Krieg rolled her shoulders, neck cracking like breaking icicles. "I want a medic drone prepped for repurposing." "You mean converting it into a mobile autopsy kit?" "I said what I said." The commander sighed and turned to Vasquez. "And you?" She revved one chainsaw experimentally. "I just want to carve the Empire logo into someone's spine." 2 hours later, Widowmaker vanished into cloak mode. No thrusters. No radar. Just pure, silent menace gliding toward hacks, 77. Inside the drop pod bay, the wraiths prepped for insertion. Krieg hummed like a surgeon, under her breath while adjusting her medical bag. She now wore a lab coat armored with metal plates, every pocket holding a deadly surprise. Her scalpel case had upgraded. It now included a bone drill and a laser cauterizer that also worked as a sidearm. Vasquez loaded her chainsaws into magnetic holsters and tested a new gadget. Microdrones that exploded on contact and played Eye of the Tiger during their terminal dive. "Nice," she muttered, tucking them into her belt like candy bars. Max stood silently, outfitting himself with scavenged weaponry. No standard-issue rifles, just tools. A coil gun powered by thermite batteries, wrist-mounted EMP slicers, and his beloved Walkman, now duct-taped to a shoulder pad. He reached into his duffel and pulled out a small, ancient object, a harmonica. Krieg raised an eyebrow. "Sentimental." "Nah," Max replied. "Just figured I might need it for dramatic effect." The pod door sealed. Drop initiated. Hax 77 was a lonely, skeletal platform orbiting an even lonelier moon. The Galactic Empire had deemed it a minor asset, good for relays, bad for strategic defense. Its operators had long grown used to boredom, which is why none of them noticed the first sign, the Empire anthem glitching mid-broadcast, replaced with Bon Jovi. Then the power went out. Then the nightmares began. The wraiths hit the platform like a divine punishment. Max went first, smashing through a maintenance shaft, landing on a confused technician who had just finished warming up a cup of soup. The technician didn't scream. He passed out mid-blink. Max dragged him aside and rerouted the station's internal defense systems. The lasers now targeted anyone not playing a specific Earth frequency, thunderstruck by AC/DC. Krieg followed through the medbay airlock, bypassing every lock with fingers more precise than a machine. Inside, she found 2 medics. Instead of killing them, she knocked them out, injected them with truth serum, and then performed impromptu surgery to replace their optical nerves with lie-detecting implants. "Congratulations," she said, stitching them up. "You now serve truth and anatomy." "Vasquez?" She didn't land. She crashed. Her drop pod came in backward, flipped, and ejected her chainsaw first through a reinforced blast door. Alarms wailed. Guards screamed. She twirled like a cheerleader in a slasher film, leaving glitter-streaked devastation in her wake. "Hey, tin cans," she yelled, grinding into a security robot. "Bet you weren't programmed for awesome." She slammed the bot into a wall, carving the words "medic this" onto its chassis. The entire assault took 12 minutes. Not because the station was undefended, but because the Wraiths moved like folklore, terrifying, unstoppable, and weirdly obsessed with 80s rock anthems. By the time the Galactic Empire realized Hacks 77 had gone silent, it was already broadcasting a new signal. Human music, military secrets, and a recorded loop of Max Reynolds reading the Empire's war crimes list aloud, followed by sarcastic commentary. Krieg popped up in a segment. "Blowing up ambulances? That's just tacky." Then Vasquez, "Killing medics? I hope your bones make nice wind chimes." The transmission went viral in under an hour. Across the galaxy, even Empire worlds began whispering. Earth's psychos are loose. Is it true they fed a commanding officer his own paperwork? Do they really weaponize surgery? The answer was yes. And worse. Back on the Widowmaker, Max stood before the debrief table, shirtless, sweat still drying from the raid. "One station isn't enough," he said. "We knew this wouldn't satisfy you," Shaw replied from the holotable. "There's a second relay hub nearby. But this one's more important. Empire Command uses it to track fleet movements. It's underground. On Dren V." Vasquez whistled low. "Dren V? That's a fortress planet." Shaw nodded grimly. "Exactly. That's where they keep the Dreadfangs." The room fell silent. Even Krieg frowned. "Those were shut down," she said. "The Geneva Code." "Was ignored," Shaw interrupted. "They activated them last month." Max spat a coffee bean into a trash bin. "Well, guess we're upgrading the war crimes." "You sure you can handle a stealth drop and a Dreadfang assault in the same op?" Shaw asked. Max cracked his neck. "We're not here to handle. We're here to punish." The next infiltration was unlike the others. The team had to descend into a planet-wide defense grid without tripping thermal scanners, EM detectors, or psychic surveillance drones. Krieg developed a way to mask their neural activity using organic matter, specifically using the brain waves of dead Dreadfang scouts. She called it neurocamo. Vasquez called it gross but rad. The insertion pod was a repurposed mining drill. They tunneled into the crust of Dren V like angry termites. Inside, the fortress was already alert. Internal AI had caught wind of anomalous behavior in the relay network. Too late. Max charged first, rewiring the ventilation system to flood with knockout gas composed of cherry-scented coolant and magnesium powder. Krieg installed remote defibrillators into the guard's armor, set to explode if heart rate dropped. Vasquez? She drove a mining cart into a hangar and launched herself from it like a surfboard, swinging twin saws through 6 troopers before she even touched ground. In the deepest chamber, the Dreadfangs stood in stasis. 12-foot-tall, war-bred horrors. Muscles like steel cables. Mandibles built to crush tanks. Thoughtless, obedient, perfect Empire monsters. Krieg studied them for 2 seconds. Primitive. Vasquez kicked one in the shin. "Hey, ugly, time to wake up." One Dreadfang stirred, then locked eyes on Max. It lunged. He didn't flinch. He dropped his harmonica. It hit the ground with a quiet metallic ping, and then exploded. The creature's face disintegrated. Max stepped forward and muttered, "Bet you didn't see that on your threat assessment form." Krieg activated her drone Scalpel Swarm and hummed Sweet Child, Oh Mine, as the others awakened. The battle was brutal. Close quarters. Fire, screams, machinery screaming louder than the soldiers. The Wraiths fought like myth. Max with his improvised arsenal. Krieg weaving through bodies with surgeon's grace, injecting sedatives that doubled as acid. Vasquez danced a chainsaw ballet, cackling with each limb that flew. 10 minutes later, the Dreadfang chamber was silent. 12 genetically engineered death machines lay in various states of surgical ruin, impaled, vaporized, or psychologically reprogrammed into deep existential regret. Krieg wrote in her notebook, Note: subject brains respond to guilt suggestion. Further study warranted. They exited through the coolant tunnels, carrying what looked like the Empire's fleet movement archives inside a lunchbox. Later, back aboard the Widowmaker, Max leaned against the observation window, sipping black coffee as war reports flooded in. The Empire had declared Earth's Wraiths as non-sapient demonic entities, a legal loophole that allowed them to pretend Earth hadn't sent them. Convenient fiction. The galaxy knew better. Shaw's voice crackled in overcoms. Max, you're making headlines. Good, Max replied. Intel says the Empire's panicking. They're moving the Royal Council, pulling fleets back. Also good. Shaw hesitated. But Max, we didn't authorize a second wave. Max smiled faintly. Wasn't asking. Behind him, Krieg and Vasquez loaded up new gear. Krieg was reprogramming a surgical bot to perform bomb disassembly via autopsy. Vasquez was melting down Empire helmets into emotional support jewelry. Max stepped toward the war table. They came for our medics, he said. Now we go for their heart. He pressed a button, and a new target lit up on the star map, Zentheria Prime, the Empire's capital. And then he grinned. Let's go be uninvited guests. And somewhere in the bowels of the Widowmaker, the harmonica's second half clicked into place, its other use still unrevealed. The Galactic Empire's flagship news network, TriStar Galnet, opened with somber orchestral music and emergency red banners flashing across every broadcast. The anchor, a slithery four-eyed being with translucent skin and a taste for melodrama, adjusted its robe and leaned toward the camera. We interrupt the regularly scheduled celebration of Galactic Efficiency Month with breaking news, it said, trembling slightly. Multiple high-security installations have been compromised. Medical satellites disabled. Logistics routes severed. 12 Dreadfangs destroyed. A still image appeared, blurry, dark, terrifying. The silhouette of a human holding what looked like a chainsaw, framed in smoke and fire, grinning like a demon in a horror vid. We believe the culprits are a group of rogue Earth operatives previously thought extinct, the anchor whispered. Their code name, Project WRHS. The feed shifted to an alien military strategist, who tried very hard not to shake. These aren't soldiers. They're war artifacts, each one disavowed by their own planet. Earth has denied all involvement, claiming these individuals act of their own volition. Another screen lit up, this time showing Max Reynolds, shirtless, duct tape armor barely holding together, chewing coffee beans and lighting a cigar with what appeared to be a melting Empire rank insignia. His recorded voice said one word: boo. The Empire, for the first time in 2 centuries, panicked. Across the stars, urgent councils were summoned, bounty networks activated, private mercenary guilds hired. Apprehend or disintegrate, the Warren said. The payout was the largest in history, rivaling the GDP of 3 mid-tier planets. The Wraiths were now officially the galaxy's most wanted, and they were loving it. On board the USS Widowmaker, the mood was practically celebratory. The Wraiths watched their own wanted posters with popcorn and commentary. 600 billion credits? Vasquez hooted. That's insulting. I'm worth at least 2 planets. Depends, Krieg replied coolly, sharpening a scalpel. Do we factor in your chain of command violation rate or just body count? Max sat cross-legged on the floor, a harmonica in one hand, map projections in the other. The galactic image was riddled with red zones, systems now on alert. Their faces, names, codenames, everything was on public channels. What's the plan? Krieg asked. We escalate, Max answered, eyes never leaving the map. They're spreading themselves thin, panicking. That means we've got room to hit harder. Targets. Vasquez grinned. The Royal Military Tribunal, Max said. They're the ones who greenlit the medical convoy strike. They hide behind subspace law chambers and sovereign immunity. I hate both of those words, Vasquez said, kicking her boots up. Krieg rolled her eyes. Immunity won't save them. Not from us. They all looked at the newest target glowing on the holomap. Tribunal Station 09, orbiting Keller Prime. Shielded, guarded, and loaded with enough bureaucracy to choke a black hole. But beneath it all, 5 Empire High judges, the architects of the so-called Sterile Blade Directive. Krieg traced a scalpel across the station's diagram. Let's amputate the rot. Keller Prime was the embodiment of Empire arrogance. Massive spires of obsidian glass. Hover traffic humming in organized vertical lanes. Gold-armored guards stood at every checkpoint, eyeing passers-by like insects under a microscope. The Wraiths didn't storm it with guns blazing. They walked in. Disguises, forged clearances, and an overconfidence bordering on divine madness made for a surprisingly effective entry strategy. Max dressed as a sanitation inspector. Vasquez pretended to be a flamboyant weapons dealer named Veronica Payne. Krieg, of course, chose the role of a visiting medtech regulator, complete with a clipboard and a smile that promised malpractice lawsuits. Inside the tribunal station's lobby, Vasquez leaned against a gold statue and whispered, "This place has more security than a nuke silo." "We're not blowing it up," Max replied. "We're broadcasting it." Krieg tapped into the security feed using a dental laser repurposed into a network jack. "I've got their private deliberation chambers. Audio, video, and, personal diary logs. Someone's been embezzling prisoner organs." Vasquez gave a low whistle. "Charming. Perfect," Max muttered. "We go live in 20 minutes. But first," Krieg said, smiling like a cat with a needle, "we extract a confession." Inside the courtroom, the high judges debated in their usual pompous tones. Earth remains an emotional species. Their compassion is their weakness. Agreed. The loss of medics was regrettable, but strategically sound. I suggest we declare them a Category 3 threat and escalate planetary containment. That's when the lights went out, and the courtroom doors sealed. A new broadcast lit every screen in the building, and every Empire channel galaxy-wide. The high judges turned to see their own images, their own words, their own files displayed for all to see. And standing in the center of their courtroom, Max Reynolds, backlit, arms crossed. "Court's in session," he said. The judges froze. One reached for a panic button. Too slow. Krieg appeared beside him, pressing a scalpel to his neck with terrifying precision. "Let's not make a mess. Yet." Vasquez stood atop the judge's bench, waving at the security drones. "Hey, Galaxy, say hi to your leaders. They're the ones who greenlit bombing hospitals." Max turned to the camera. "You wanted justification? Here it is. 5 high judges. No remorse. Just strategy. Now let's ask them how they feel about being on the other end." One judge, a 3-eyed slug-like being with a wig made of solar fibers, tried to speak. "We were following procedure." Krieg leaned in, holding up an autopsy photo of a 12-year-old nurse from the relief fleet. "Which procedure covered vaporizing children?" Silence. Max gestured to Vasquez. She tossed down a black bag. Out spilled holorecorders, documents, and visual files, stolen from Empire archives, decrypted with Krieg's bone needle drives. All proof. All damning. "We're not judges," Max said. "We're not soldiers. We're consequences. You struck first. You declared war on healers. And we're the ones who answer." He looked directly into the lens. "This is your new reality. Earth doesn't send peacekeepers anymore. It sends ghosts." By the time the Empire regained control of the station's broadcasts, the damage was irreversible. Citizens, allies, neutral systems, they all saw the truth. The high judges were arrested, tried, and publicly disgraced not by the Empire, but by their own people. Earth denied everything, of course. UN command simply stated, "We have no control over retired military personnel with interstellar travel capabilities and a grudge." The Wraiths became more than fugitives. They became legends. Symbols of rebellion, of justice in the face of bureaucracy, of creative violence paired with unshakable purpose. And that's when things really got out of hand. Half a galaxy away, pirate clans began repainting their ships with red cross symbols and chainsaws. A mercenary guild changed its motto to "We practice medicine and revenge." Entire planets questioned their treaties with the Empire. But while the stars burned with gossip and chaos, the Wraiths had only one thing on their minds: Xantheria Prime, the heart of the Empire, and the last known location of Supreme Commander Varelian, the being who signed the attack order against Earth's medics. Vasquez sipped from a cup made of melted judge wig fibers. "So we gotta go kick their fancy throne in now." "Not yet," Max replied. "They'll expect that." Krieg twirled a scalpel. "Then what?" "We bleed them dry first, piece by piece. Let their citizens see the rot. Let their soldiers feel the fear. Let them understand what happens when you hurt what we protect." He zoomed in on the capital's planetary defenses. Dozens of shield satellites, massive fleet patrols, bio-coded entry locks, an orbital kill zone. "We can't storm it." Krieg nodded slowly. "Then we infiltrate it." "And how do we do that?" Vasquez asked. Max grinned. "Easy. We hijack a royal cruiser." Krieg raised an eyebrow. "With what crew?" Max pointed at their wanted posters still plastered across Galnet. "The most wanted team in the galaxy," he said. "And tomorrow we're going to crash a parade." Vasquez stood up and stretched. "Well, hell, I'll need a new dress." Krieg slid a bone scalpel into her boot. "And I'll need fresh corpses." Max loaded another cassette into his Walkman. Time to flip the tape. The parade was a marvel of opulence and blind arrogance. Xantheria Prime, heart of the Galactic Empire, draped itself in silks of starlight and banners spun from atmosphere-reflective thread. Massive floats shaped like imperial warships hovered low over cheering crowds, launching fireworks that burst into holographic tributes of conquest. Trumpets blared across the capital skyline. Elite guards lined the streets, their gold armor polished to mirror perfection. Overhead, royal cruisers glided past in formation, showing off precision and control. And at the very center, on a dais carved from a meteorite supposedly plucked from the first planet the Empire ever liberated, stood Supreme Commander Varelian himself. Towering, composed, in robes that glittered with embedded data gems, he raised a hand to silence the crowd. "Citizens of the Empire," he boomed, voice amplified across half a planet. "Our might is unquestioned. Our enemies hide in shadow, their feeble tactics laid bare. Today, we do not just celebrate history, we remind the galaxy who writes it." He smiled. At that exact moment, a lower began, subtle, just beneath the range of crowd chatter. Then it rose. A terrible, familiar sound, metal blades revving, sparking, building speed like a beast licking its teeth. Chainsaws. The crowd fell silent. One of the royal floats jerked suddenly. Sparks exploded from its undercarriage. A security bot flew out of control, struck a statue, and detonated. Smoke curled from a dozen corners of the parade grounds. From the main cruiser, hovering above the palace square, a voice echoed through the fleet's comms. Rough. Amused. "Hey, Varelian. Got your invitation. You'll want to update the guest list." Max Reynolds stepped forward on the top deck of the cruiser, flanked by Krieg and Vasquez. The crowd froze. Security moved, but the Wraiths were faster. Krieg activated a signal pulse. Every drone, camera, and comm unit within a kilometer went live, broadcasting raw footage to every corner of the Empire. The holoscreens that had been showing Imperial propaganda flickered and switched. Now they showed Max lighting a cigar with a torch from a fallen parade float. Vasquez revved her chainsaws, both modified with laser edges now, crackling with blue fire. "Smile, jackasses," she said, leaping from the cruiser. She landed in the middle of the parade, cutting a line between guards like she was marking territory. Panic erupted as the crowd scattered. Krieg moved like a phantom, slipping between chaos, tossing surgical microbombs disguised as flower petals. Each one stuck, beeped, and exploded with spine-snapping precision. Max? He dropped from the cruiser using a tether line, boots hitting the meteorite dais like judgment itself. Varelian backed up a step. "I remember your face," Max said. "You signed the medic's death orders." Varelian raised a trembling hand. "You're criminals. You don't represent Earth." "You're not." "I represent what happens when you kill healers," Max interrupted. "When you think empathy is a weakness. When you mistake restraint for fear." He tossed his Walkman onto the dais. Bon Jovi began to play. "You opened the wrong door." Blaster fire erupted as palace guards opened up from the balconies. But Krieg already had drones in the air, scalpel-sized, blood-slick, and smarter than they had any right to be. They zipped through armor joints like needles through silk. Vasquez screamed past them, chainsaws roaring as she took down a hoverbike mid-flight and used its burning frame to vault over the Imperial lines. "Everybody dies but me," she shouted gleefully. The Empire's elite forces responded, dozens of soldiers clad in adaptive armor, backed by robotic juggernauts designed to suppress riots. Max charged straight into them. His makeshift gauntlets sparked as he used a shockwave emitter to toss the first wave like dolls. He pulled a rail spike launcher from his hip and fired. Each shot hit with thunderous kinetic force, slamming enemies into walls, ceilings, floors. But they kept coming. He didn't care. "Hey Krieg," he barked into comms. "How's the heart rate?" Krieg's voice came back cool. "Yours is at optimal vengeance levels." "Perfect." Varelian tried to run. Bad idea. Krieg intercepted him at the palace doors, dragging him by the collar with surgeon strength. "Don't think you get out of this," she whispered. "Not before the anesthesia." The broadcast was still live. Empire citizens, soldiers, civilians, even officers, watched in real time as their unshakable capital descended into chaos. Watched as 3 human war criminals dismantled their peace with creativity, brutality, and a weird amount of musical accompaniment. Max moved through the carnage like a ghost in a war song. One elite soldier charged him with a plasma spear. Max ducked, grabbed the soldier's belt, spun, and flung him into a barricade. The impact cracked both armor and wall. Another fired a sniper bolt. Max deflected it with a shield generator jury-rigged from parts of an oven. They were adapting. Fast. Too fast. Krieg regrouped with him near the central command tower. Blood splattered across her coat in artistic patterns. "They're scrambling the fleet. If we don't finish it now, we'll be cut off." Max looked up at the tower, tall, elegant, and powered by the central data core. Then down at the explosive pack hanging off his belt. Time for the finale. They fought their way up the tower. Vasquez swinging through balconies like a murder-themed Tarzan, Krieg cutting power conduits with scalpels that melted through alloy. Max set the charges. Every step they climbed, more fire rose beneath them. At the top, Varelian waited. A final stand. He'd called in the Justicars, the Empire's most feared commandos, cybernetic war priests, with cloaks of nanosteel and blades made from neutron crystal. They encircled the tower. Max looked at Krieg. She nodded once. At Vasquez. She was already grinning. "Last dance," he said. They hit like lightning. Max drew a shock blade and met the first Justicar head-on, locking weapons in a spray of sparks. He ducked, rolled, and drove his blade through the gap in its ribs. Krieg took on 2 at once, using a defibrillator as both taser and blade. Vasquez simply roared, revving into a whirlwind of shrieking metal. By the time the tower cracked and alarms wailed warning of structural failure, only the wraiths remained standing. Max stalked toward Varelian, who now knelt, robes torn, face bloodied. "You wanted war," Max said. "You got it." Varelian spat. "You're terrorists." "No," Krieg said, stepping beside Max. "We're surgeons. We cut out infection." Vasquez leaned on one chainsaw. "And baby, you're gangrene." Max